Differential equation number 5. Now this one is an example where we don't have to create the differential equation at all. So you could just get a question where you have something like this. You can see the differential equation and we are going to solve this to find y. The dy by dx term is basically on its own on this side. The 2 doesn't really matter. The dx can come off the bottom up onto this side, and you'll have to put the whole of this side in a bracket because the dx is going to come up and multiply by the whole side. Now the bracket's useful because then you're looking at that as one bracket. To get the y onto the y side, you can't just take the 2y on its own, you've got to move the whole bracket. Okay, so the correct way it should look once you have separated your variables should be that. The only alternative would be if that 2 was on the bottom to be a half on that side, but it's probably better on the top as a 2. The wrong method would have been to try and bring the y over onto the left first. Okay, if you had started off by moving the 2y onto the y side, it's not going to work at all, because then you can't take the dx off the bottom and just put it up onto the top there, because then you're ignoring the fact that this is a separate term. So this isn't going to work trying to do this. It will give you completely the wrong equation. Okay, but just to point out that if you saw an equation that was presented like this to begin with, then your first maneuver should be to get the differential term on its own. That's why when I looked at this to start with, I said, okay, the differential term is basically on its own on the left. So if I was beginning from this line here that I'm pointing at, you'd move the 2y across, then you'd do exactly what I've done on this side. Okay, so carrying on from where we are at here. So this is linear power 1, and that's the one that turns into ln. Okay, so the 2 on the top is a multiplying factor. Your rule is it's ln of the bottom divided by the differential of the bottom, which is a -2. So you mustn't forget that step. That's really easily forgotten. On the other side, we've got a number 1, which integrates to an x, a 1x, but obviously we don't write the 1, plus constant. I can cancel out that 2 with that 2 and pull the minus just to the front. Okay, so given that y is 1 when x is 0, that would give me minus ln of 5 minus 2, which is 3, and modulus 3 is just 3 anyway. X is 0, so that gives me minus ln 3 for my constant. Okay, so we come back to the line here where we were just before I subbed in to find my constant, and I'm going to write that and then include my constant, which is negative ln 3. So we get to this. Okay, so we've got to keep going. We've got to find an expression for y in terms of x. Okay, when I have a constant which is a log, I generally don't turn that into a decimal. It will look worse. I'll bring the logs onto the same side. Now this is actually going to hop across to become a positive log, so actually I'm going to sit it at the front of the line, so I don't begin my line with a negative sign. It doesn't really matter, but it will just make more sense then as we join our logs together with the log rule. We're using log a, take away log b, is log of a over b. I've lost my modulus signs now, but it doesn't really matter, because we're going to get rid of the log now and turn it into an e. So 3 over 5 minus 2y is e to the x. Okay, we've still got to keep going. Now, quite half of this question is the rearranging at this point. We've got to get to y equals, so I need to take the whole bracket up onto the top, onto the other side, There's no point multiplying it out because I'm trying to isolate this y. I can move the e to the x underneath. Nearly there. E to the x on the bottom is easier to write it as e to the minus x on the top. And then 2 more steps. Bring the 2y across and take the 3 e to the x, e to the minus x, onto the other side. So we're isolating the y term and it's positive, and then I divide by 2. So 5 take away 3 e to the negative x divided by 2. If you'd hop the 5 over onto the left and left the negative 2y on the right and divided by minus 2, you will get the same correct answer. You would have got 3 e to the minus x take away 5 divided by negative 2, which is the same thing.